did you decide to take a stand on climate change, and why?
Well, you know, for my first 6 years in Congress, I said it was nonsense.
You said it was nonsense.
Yeah, I had no idea anything about it, except that Al Gore was for it, and that was the end of the inquiry, because I represented a pretty conservative district in South Carolina, you know, Greenville, Spartanburg. So that was my first 6 years in Congress. I just said it was nonsense. Then I was out 6 years doing commercial real estate law again in Greenville, South Carolina. And then I was running again in '04. My son came to me. He's the oldest of our 5 kids.
How old was he at the time?
He just turned 18, so he's voting for the first time.
Okay.
And so he said to me, Dad, I'll vote for you, but you're going to clean up your act on the environment. So it was the first of a 3-step metamorphosis for me. And by the way, he was going to vote for me no matter what. He was not making a classic interest group threat, you know. I mean, he knew that we were mortgaging the farmette that we live on. And so he was going to vote for me. What if I'd lost by 1 vote? I mean.
But he wanted to make a point to his father.
Yeah, he wanted, I think what he was saying really is, Dad, I love you, and you can be better than you were before. So how about make this Inglis 2.0, the new and improved version? You know, let's do better this time
That's such the
around.
language of an 18-year-old, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. So, and his 4 sisters agreed, his mother agreed. Important new constituency. You know, those people can change the locks on the doors. So you got to respond to that constituency.
What was his pitch to you, Dad? Why should you care about the environment?
Well, he's really quite the outdoors guy, you know. I mean, I guess we raised him that way and, you know, participated with him on a lot of that stuff. And he just sort of said, you know, come on, get with it. And, you know, that's what it takes sometimes, is for us to break out of a pattern we're in. And so he heard the things I was saying about climate change, and he said, come on, that's just not right.
What were you saying about climate change?
Well,
were you a denier?
Oh, yeah, I said it's nonsense. I just said, I didn't know anything about it, like I said, except that Al Gore was for it. But that was the end of the inquiry, because, you know, politically it was a problem, you know, that Al Gore had staked out that territory. We conservatives apparently didn't have a solution. And so, you know, when you don't have a solution, you doubt the existence of the problem, right? And so that was the first step. The second step was going to Antarctica with a science committee, seeing the evidence in the ice core drillings. And that evidence is basically this, you know, in the ice cores that we pull up out of the ice in Antarctica, got a great record of the Earth's atmosphere. And we can see the CO2 levels. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the increase in CO2 that comes with the Industrial Revolution, and then track temperature and CO2 levels, they track almost precisely. And so what it clearly shows is some science that's really pretty settled. This part of it is quite settled, that CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere create warming. And by the way, Stephanie, none of the skeptics would deny this, what I'm saying here. This is not the point of disputation. They would accept that. What they doubt is the model's ability to project the future. But so I saw that evidence in Antarctica. I saw the evidence of the CO2 rises. And then the third step was another science committee trip, Great Barrier Reef, snorkeling with an Aussie climate scientist named Scott Heron. And I could see that he was worshiping God and what he was showing me. And so I knew before any words were spoken that we shared a worldview.
Can you pause for just a second? The way you phrased that was so interesting, that you could see he was worshiping God. What did you mean by that?
It was written all over his face, it was in his voice, it was in his eyes, that he was just exalting God for what he was showing me. In other words, these are gloriously beautiful corals, you know, but you could tell he wasn't worshiping the corals, that he was worshiping the God behind the corals. And so, you know, later we had a chance to talk, and he told me about conservation changes he's making in his life in order to love God, love people. You know, when you're with Scott, you take the escalator if it's running. Otherwise, you take the stairs. You don't take the elevator. He rides his bike to work. He tries to do without air conditioning in a hot place, Townsville, Australia.
And this is about, for him, this is about caring for God's creation. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and loving people that will come after us. And so I got right inspired. I thought, I want to be like Scott.
I assume you're a Christian.
Yeah, I wanted to be like Scott, loving God and loving people.